Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I am Gerry. Today, I am joined by Terry and a new face/voice, depending on however you are consuming this content. We've got Ben with us. Ben, so you're from Liverpool.
Yep.
Your work shows up in Liverpool Echo. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us about how long you've been supporting Everton. I'm assuming like forever. And so just kind of go from there.
Absolutely, yeah. I've been an Everton season ticket holder now for nearly 10 years. A match goer since around 2003. So very young age, really. I'm 25 now. So I've seen all the good and, well, a lot of the bad, obviously, to see. But that's sort of my background. I've started recently recording a few podcasts for the Liverpool Echo in conjunction with some of the people there. And then I've actually had a written piece published on the Echo website last week. So this is I'm at the early stages of my sort of forage into this kind of territory, but I'm enjoying it. And as long as Everton start turning it around on the pitch, hopefully it'll be even more enjoyable to talk about wins.
Totally agree with that. So you've kind of recently been doing the written content. Did you do blog entries before this, like just kind of writing random pieces for different websites, or how did you kind of get into that?
Well, to be honest, back when I was 17, I was a trainee journalist for around 6 months in college, to which I'm a bit of a dropout in that sense because I left to then get a full-time job, which hasn't worked badly for me because I'm still in the same industry that I was then, and I'm doing well for myself. But that sort of as limited as my experience was since school, really, when I used to write write-ups about Everton in my English literature classes. So really, it is just a case of I am a bit of a baby when it comes to this, and sort of getting involved as much as I can because I really enjoy it, especially because it's about Everton.
Yeah, I know for me, like I started doing this just, this was kind of my, being in America. There are a few Everton folks here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, but it's not like a deluge in which I interact with daily or anything.
Yeah.
So this is my connection, you know what I mean? This is how I can actually connect and not drive my wife and kids absolutely just nuts with me being, trying to ask my wife, what do you think about Moise Kean? How do you think he's doing? And she'll still talk Everton with me, but it's this is my outlet for that. It's been pretty great with that, and I get to meet you folks, which is badass. It's an education for me as well. Otherwise, I'm just shivering over here in the dark, and no one likes
it's cold
that.
enough here as well. Don't worry.
So anyway, Ben, welcome. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, this is exciting. Terry, we have another friend, Terry. Yeah. You can brag to your cats about that.
Yeah. Another member of the Toffee Blue crew, is he?
Yeah. He's if he chooses to admit it. That's
I'll let you know at the end of this.
He's like, not in public, man, not in public, no. All right, so let's move on. This has been a international break week, so everybody loves those. They don't is the true answer. Like tonight we have a local high school playoff game, and I'm more excited about that than I have been for any of the international play over the past week. So yeah. All right, so Everton's team of the decade, guys. So this is kind of a weird thing for me because Ben, you were talking about how you're you called yourself kind of a baby when it comes to doing all the Everton analysis in terms of media and everything. I'm kind of a baby when it comes to Everton support because I didn't really get my hooked in until around the 2012, 2013, somewhere around in there. So I missed part of this. But I did a little research, so hopefully I'm not too off. It seems a reasonable place to start at keeper. So how many nominations do we have for keeper, Ben? What are you thinking?
Well, there's only two for me, and one of them sort of pushing it 'cause he's only been here a couple of years. I think you're looking at Tim Howard, although I do probably think it was sort of end of his Everton career where he was starting to actually, his form was starting to deteriorate slightly. Other than that, it's Jordan Pickford, the current number one, and I think it's between them two. You've got special mentions, obviously, to like to Joel Robles, And the only other than that, you've really only got Martin Stecklenburg, who, despite an away game at Manchester City, doesn't really cut it in any type of this conversation about the best teams. So for me, you've only got two real contenders in Pickford and Tim Howard.
Terry, all that line up with you, bud?
Yeah, it's the most cut and dry area of the team. I think Howard or Pickford's, and anyone else has only been little short stints, haven't he? Honourable mention to the one and only Jan Mucker. But
that game against Man City at home when we beat them 2-0, he was outstanding.
Exactly, could just get it from that. Either of those. So are we going to pick out those two now, or?
Yeah, let's just pick one.
I think it's got to be Tim Howard, to be honest.
Yeah, Tim Howard.
Just about. I mean, give Pickford another couple of years, and I think he'll be a much better goalie than Tim Howard was. But for the longevity, for the certainty he was for the club, I think you've got to just about edges Jordan Pickford there. For me, anyway.
I agree. It is. You mentioned that his form was starting to deteriorate during this decade, but I think it was strong enough at the beginning to warrant. Yeah. And I think you're right. Give Pickford some more time, and he's going to eclipse that. But it just depends on how much longer he's around, and if he can keep his concentration up and his emotions in check. I guess we'll be finding out about that later on. Okay, Tim Howard, keeper. Pretty straightforward there. This next one might be pretty straightforward as well. Terry, I'll let you start left back. Do we have many options here, guys?
Yeah, I mean, there's only one choice, isn't there? I mean, as good as Luca Dean's been in the last year, Leighton Baines, I don't think he gets, and he certainly didn't at the time, get the credit he deserved. He was, in the early part of the decade, he was unquestionably the best left back in Europe, on merit, on form, on everything. Manchester United under Sir Alex Ferguson wanted him and he turned them down. Him and Seamus Coleman was singled out a lot when we were in Europe under Roberto Martinez as the key players for Everton. I think Leighton Baines is just, without question, the left back of the decade for Everton. He could even be arguably the left back of the Premier League for Everton. I mean, he'd be in the conversation, and there'd obviously be other great left backs in there, but doesn't get said enough just how good he was.
Yeah, I got no argument with that. How about you, Ben?
Absolutely not. No, Luca Dean has been fantastic since we signed him. I'm sure we'll come on to that in the signings, the best signings later, but Leighton Baines, different class. I mean, it's a shame really that Ashley Cole was around as long as he was, because otherwise he would have been, for me, the best Premier League left back. He's certainly the best left back I've seen at Everton in my 20 odd years supporting Everton, but no, there's no argument. As good as Luca Dean's been, and he'd probably be the second choice, Leighton Baines wins it by a mile.
So, guys, I'm going to continue doing the defense here. 4 defenders, 1 keeper. I just want to make sure that we all have 4 defenders as our team here, because formation-wise, I did sort of a 4-2-3-1.
That's what I've gone
That's
for.
That's kind of what I did.
Yeah, it's what we've played for more or less the
majority.
So it would, any Everton team you'd more or less look at across the decade would usually be in that formation anyway.
So I just wanted to double check you guys were on point with that. We're all in agreement before I started spouting out some random nonsense. You guys are like, wait a minute, Gerry. So yeah. Center backs, guys. I'll just go ahead and blab mine. I have difficulty looking past Distan and Jagielka. Those are my 2. I think you can give a shout to some, it'd be great if eventually Yerry Mina earns his way in. I just think he needs a little more staying power. Let's give him some more time. And you could mention John Stones at some point, but again, he just not, and he didn't really end very strong with us either. So, Ben, what do you think about that?
Yeah, pretty much on board with you. I've got Jagielka and Distan as my 2 centre-halves. I think the Jagielka one's easy. Best centre-back I've seen at Everton. Consistent throughout that period, and he's obviously only left the club in the summer. The only difficulty I had was the other position, Sylvain Distan. I've written a few names down there. I ended up going for Distan, but you'll be interested. The other 3 names even that I put down. One of them was John Stones, that you've mentioned before. The other two, in fact, were John Heitinger and Kurt Zouma, because John Heitinger, although overall throughout his Everton career wasn't that consistent, he wasn't brilliant. There was the 2011-2012 season where he got Player of the Season, and he actually kept Phil Jagielka well out the side with his partnership with Sylvain Distin. So I think if we're going for the decade as sort of a one-off, I think, it's still going to be Sylvain Distin for his consistency, but special mentions to Heitinger and Kurt Zouma, because I thought Kurt Zouma, if we'd signed him in the summer, I'd probably put him in the team. It's because he's at Chelsea now, I didn't pick him, because he was outstanding last season.
He was. Terry, how you feel about all that?
Yeah, can't argue with any of that. It's got to be Jagielka and Distin. And I didn't always like Distin across his time, but I grew to appreciate him more as time went on, because I sort of unfairly compared him to Lescott in the beginning, and he wasn't as good as Lescott, but he did grow when he was at the club, and his partnership with Jagielka was, pretty good across the whole decade, if you look at it as a whole collective. No arguments from me there. Jagielka and Distin as the centre-backs.
All right. So we're 4 down. Got 7 more. Right back. Ben, let's go back to you on this.
Again, this is probably even more clear-cut than the Leighton Baines position. To me, I'll say Seamus Coleman. There's no debate. I mean, Tony Abbott was a great servant for the club. Phil Neville also, I thought that was his best position at right back, but he hasn't even sorted the way you've got Luca Dean vying for the left back slot in this sort of imaginary squad we've got. I don't think anyone, even in the next 10-15 years, is going to come close to Seamus Coleman. So, especially because we only got him for 60 grand as well. So it's Seamus Coleman all the way for me. I don't know what you think.
Terry?
Yeah, can't argue with any of that. Seamus Coleman. I mean, I said the goalkeeper was cut and dry, but talk about cast iron. It's Seamus Coleman. There's just no two ways about it. It's only a shame that he was bought in 2009. Otherwise, he'd be on the next segment for the best sign. But without doubt, the two most secure positions in this team actually are the fullbacks, the Seamus Coleman and Leighton Baines.
This is a miracle that all of what I have said, you guys have said as well. I feel like I'm just going to alert the media. That's
Wait
awesome.
till you get to the midfield. That's when it's going to change.
I'm so nervous about that. All right, so all right, let's get there. Let's start with one of our center mids, Terry, or you can go with both the center mids if you want to knock them out, bang bang. Who's the 2 in the 4-2-3-1? Terry.
For me, it would be Gareth Barry and Idrissa Gana Gueye. I think Gareth Barry's partnership with McCarthy was fantastic while it happened. I'll correct myself. It was fantastic for that one season where it was Martinez's first season, but after that I feel like McCarthy never really got back to his best after his injuries. And if we're looking at it as the decade as a whole, I think Idrissa Gana Gueye's got to be in there. So he needs to be in the midfield. So it's just which of the Barry and McCarthy pairs you go with, and for me it's got to be Gareth Barry. So that'd be mine too.
Ben, what do you got?
Okay, we've got the first disagreement on the pod today. I've got Gareth Barry as the easiest choice out of the 2. Very consistent, great signing as well. He might come to him later as a free signing. But this is the position I struggled with most, the second central midfielder, because the 4 names that I was picking from, Idrissa Gueye was one of them. However, to be fair, the other ones around it, there was actually James McCarthy, like you alluded to then, and also, funnily enough, Leon Osman. And before anyone sort of looks too surprised, the reason I've got Leon Osman there is because, if you remember rightly, the season that he finally got his belated England call-up, I think it was 2012-13, Moyes' last season, he played as a central midfielder alongside Darren Gibson, and I always thought that was his best position. I always thought even Moyes tried to play him as a right winger too often, and that it was never Leon Osman's game. So that's the sort of special mention. But the name I've finally gone with, despite not the longevity in his time at the club during this decade, but purely for his class on the pitch, and I still think he'd get in the team now, is Mikel Arteta. I think it's difficult because I'm sure you'll point out he was only there for about 18 months, if that, 2 years from when this decade begins, but he's probably the best, most talented midfielder I've seen at Everton. So as much as it was sort of the easy choice for me, because I was choosing, to be honest, between the 3 I've mentioned before, but when you look at Arteta and what he did for Everton and how good he was even when he left, I couldn't leave him out the team, to be honest.
Okay. This is where my inexperience shows. Because I wrote down players who I'm not even sure play the right positions. So there's that. I'll just lead with that. Arteta was the first name I wrote down.
Yeah.
And then it gets hazy because I didn't write down Gareth Barry, although he did make my list. He was one of the lists I wrote down in terms of being a strong signing. But I did not write him down. Here's the problem. Fellaini played more of a center attacking mid for us, didn't he? Mm-hmm. And I wrote him down, and so that's wrong.
You could if he's borderline, you could easily have him as one of your centre midfielders.
I've actually got him in though behind the striker.
Yeah. See, I wrote him down and I wrote an additional player down for center attacking mid instead of him, just because I was trying to wedge them in because they were such good players. So sort of cheating, but
no, yeah. That's perfectly fine.
Well, you was a central midfielder for most of it, yeah.
Yeah, if you
okay, well, you guys made me feel better about it. I appreciate it.
If you turn around and said, "Oh, I'm going to have Bernard centre midfield," and I'd be like, but
I was a bit worried you were going to say you had Gareth Barry attacking mid like at one point.
Yeah.
As long as you have, that's okay.
So we have Gareth Barry and Idrissa Gueye, Gareth Barry and Mikel Arteta, and Mikel Arteta and Marouane Fellaini. That's what we've got as our center mids. Now let's go across the three. Okay. Let's think about left wing. All right. I'll leave with this because I only had like one answer, and that was Steven Pienaar. That's the only answer I had. Mm-hmm. Any disagreement on that, Ben?
No disagreement on that. He's in my team. The only other sort of name that I've got linked with that position is maybe an unpopular one, but it's Kevin Mirallas. Similar to the reasons what I mentioned for Leon Osman before, just because I think when we signed him in 2012 to 2014, 2015, he was quality and he was consistent and he was really good in the late David Moyes side and the 13-14 season when we had Roberto Martinez. Obviously that tailed off and I think it's left a bit of a sour note on his time at the club. But for pure ability, I'd actually say Mirallas was better than Pienaar. But for the purposes of this team, for what he did for Everton again, and for the partnership alone with Leighton Baines, Steven Pienaar, you got no arguments with me from that one.
Terror Bear, what do you got?
Yeah, it's got to be Pienaar. He to me is very much like Arteta, whereas even though he came into the he came into the club in the previous decade, he was obviously still part of the team going into this one, and I think I think of Arteta as not here long enough, but Pienaar, because he came back after Arteta had left. I think it was after Arteta had left, but he basically came back for a second stint. So we got a few more, years, grace at the club, and I can't argue with the Mirallas shout as well. I think he's a strong candidate as well. But for me, there's only one choice. It's got to be Steven Pienaar.
Yeah.
All right. Terry, keep talking and plow into right wing.
Right wing for me was the most up in the air part of the team, because whilst people may think, oh well, Kevin Mirallas was a force of a player when we first got him, the late, like as Ben said, the late Moyes era, early Martinez era. However, if you consider his whole time across the decade, he doesn't just tail off at the very end of his career. He does spend a good few years being useless and being a negative influence in the dressing room. So for me, what would have been a nailed down position, he isn't anymore. So if you look through, there's strong cases to be made for like short stints for a lot of players. There's Gerard Deulofeu. He got like lots of assists for Lukaku that season and struck up one of the strongest partnerships I've seen at the club. There's for his two short stints, Landon Donovan. He came in and was really, really effective, and he did. I loved Donovan, and he did 2 times he was here, he made the team better. But you could just say him when there's not enough, there's not been a long time. But the player I'm gone with is probably the only one who's in the team now, and I'm going to go with Richarlison. I know he's only got one season under his belt, but that to me is testament to the quality of the other players we've had on that wing, because he's a top quality player. He looks like he's going to get better and better, and he's been our joint top scorer already. So I don't think maybe Morales was our joint top scorer once, but for me, I think Deulofeu, Donovan and Morales and Richarlison all have equally strong shouts for different reasons, but I'm going to go with Richarlison in this one.
Yeah, I was laughing, Terry, because I also had Richarlison, and I was sitting there thinking, is he really a right wing? No, he just kind of plays across the line. So that was just like, I felt like Richarlison, I think when it's all said and done, he will deserve to be in the team. But yeah, it's a good question. Now that we know Moise Kean is a right wing, should we? I kid. All right. So what are you thinking, Ben?
Well, not Moise Kean for a start. He's definitely a striker, but that's another debate, as you'll see.
I don't even think it's a long debate, Ben.
Yeah. But moving on. Actually, I've got Richarlison on my sheet as the second choice on the right wing, funnily enough, because I was struggling to come up with it. Deulofeu, I think, was too inconsistent for me. I actually think Morales probably was a better player than him as well. But for me, I've actually gone for Landon Donovan. He was only here a short time, but you know what? Every time, the 2 times he joined us in 2010 January, and I think 2012, I think it was, he just instantly improved us. And you know what? It was the biggest, I think, regret of that sort of era that we didn't sign him, especially after the first loan spell, because basically he was getting interviewed every 5 minutes by the press over in America, and he was saying how much he wanted to join Everton without actually saying it. But obviously he didn't want to annoy LA Galaxy, who'd done a lot for him. But for me, Richarlison, I've no doubt if we do this another 10 years, he's probably going to be in the team. But again, it's the position. Is he left? Is he right? I think he's a striker. It's a difficult one. So I've gone for Landon Donovan because a bit of the sentimentality of what if we'd have just signed him when we should have done the summer of 2010, I think it was, after the first loan spell. Who knows what? I think that was the missing piece. That was a missed piece for us then, and that's why he's in my team today.
Yeah, big regret for me. I wasn't following Everton at that time. Oh, that sucks. And everybody's like, "Oh yeah, Landon Donovan, right?" I'm like, "Yes."
Brilliant.
I assume. So yeah. All right, center attacking mid here. Ben, why don't you go ahead and I think you've already mentioned who your center attacking mid is. If you want to repeat that and give your reasoning.
Well, before obviously I think you know where it is, but before I do, I'd like to sort of make a sort of online apology to my hero, Tim Cahill. He is by far away my favourite player who's ever played for Everton. And unfortunately, this sort of survey team selection, if you will, has just come just a couple of years too late for him. 10 years before that, yeah. In the Premier League overall, 11 we've got, 100%. For me, he's an Everton legend. But for the 2 years that he was still there till 2012, in regards to this conversation, I think Marouane Fellaini was offered more. I think Marouane Fellaini was pivotal in that very late David Moyes team in 2012-13 when we really should have done a lot better, in my opinion. But especially the season before as well against Man United, he scored a couple of goals in the famous 4-4 draw. So as much as it pains me to not put Tim Cahill in the side, so I'm sorry, Tim, if of course you're not listening, but it's got to be Marouane Fellaini for me.
You never know, he's pretty active. Tim Cahill gets, he's around.
If Tim Cahill is this, then I'm sorry and I love you, Tim. End of.
Terry, who's your center attacking mid?
Yeah, I echo every single word he's just said. Honourable mention to Tim Cahill, but given the dates that this is encompassing, then it's going to have to be Marouane Fellaini. He was just a physical beast when he was playing. He's the only ever target man number 10 I've ever seen. You get playmaker number 10s, second striker number 10s, a target man who's not the first forward player. I've never seen another one since, and I've never seen one before, but he was just fantastic the way he was used in that late Moyes era team. And Fellaini at the time, I always think of it personally of, he each team's got like a franchise player. Like some teams have got maybe one or two, but they've certainly got a lot of players who people recognise. But the one player who you think of when you think of that team, it was Cahill before that. It was, I think for a short spell, Fellaini was as well, and then obviously it was Lukaku, and it's probably Richarlison now. When you look at, there's plenty of other good players, but Fellaini was that iconic Everton player. He's got the hair, and he
talisman, wasn't he?
Yeah, he played well in the big games. Not always, but for the most part. And he ran the show against Man City, and this headed goal against Man United on the opening day of the season, where the script for Sky Sports was just written that Man United have bought Van Persie and they're just going to turn up and beat everyone this year, and Everton just spoiled the party on the first day. Just brilliant. I think Fellaini, it was just absolutely ridiculous, the lack of respect he got when he went to Man United. Like, the Man United supporters and sort of intelligentsia all thought they were too good for him. It's like they really didn't see what they were at that time. They still will probably to this day say he was never a United player, when there's much worse players who played for Man United while Fellaini was there. yeah, exactly. They just sort of made their minds up because he was brought in by an unfashionable manager and was an unorthodox type player, that he wasn't good enough for them, and he was one of their most effective players for his entire time, and he probably could do with him now. I think he'd get in their midfield now.
I think he'd get in ours as well.
Yeah, he's an underrated player. I
definitely agree.
So, because I've already said Fellaini, and because I wasn't watching Everton in the early 2010s, but my favorite, he's like a human highlight reel. I didn't realize he may not have been providing as much in the early 2010s. So I wrote down Tim Cahill because I figured he may be watching, may earn some brownie points. Tim, you see what's happening here? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, just saying. No, so I wrote down Tim Cahill because he embodies everything that I feel like is important in a player. He's just I don't see how a dude like that is winning headers over guys a foot taller. It's nuts. Okay, and he provides some of the best highlights I've ever seen. Now, was I watching games at that point? No, which is probably why I said his name and these guys didn't. So there's that. But I basically wrote this down because, he is my favorite player that I never saw play live. Except for in the World Cup. Saw him play in the World Cups. And, provided some highlights there too. So, last thing, striker. Obviously this is the Strack, right, guys?
Absolutely. Dennis Strack for lazy, what a player.
Yeah. So, on the ass, but
love him equally, to be honest. Yeah, he's great as well.
I went Lukaku.
Yeah, standard. There's no arguments, is there?
Yeah. The best Premier League era striker at Everton, like him or loathe him, he was great for us. We had a terrible team for the time he was here, for the most part, apart from the first season, and he scored 20 goals every season. And just wish he had a different personality. He would be an Everton legend if he just wasn't such a petulant, childish person. Now players who didn't have even half the talent he's got will be remembered more fondly than he was, especially after the way he conducted himself when he left. But can't take anything away from him. He was by far our best striker for the whole decade.
If he had Tim Cahill's attitude and his sort of presence on the pitch, then you've got an unbelievable world-class striker. And I completely agree with what you say there. His attitude let him down, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, every international break, he would talk about leaving, and when he left, he cupped his ear at fans and just going, I saw a banner not long ago at Goodison with various number 9s on it, and the most recent one was Duncan Ferguson, and I just think, Duncan Ferguson wasn't even half the player you are talent-wise, Lukaku. but he'll just be remembered as a hero to Evertonians because he got the club and he loved the club. Whereas Lukaku, while he was fantastic, just didn't. But
wasn't Sandro Ramirez on this flag, by the way?
Yeah. And
we might get on to him later if we do a signing section, but
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one small sidebar. One player who was better than Lukaku for 4 months only was Jelavic.
I knew you were going there.
He was unreal for 4 months. He literally was possessed by the spirits of like.
Something happened with him when he went on holiday, didn't it?
Yeah.
For the summer.
He was unbelievable. Everything he touched, when second touch was a celebration. He just couldn't do no wrong, and then after that, just went downhill.
Well, no, he got used to Everton, didn't he? That's what it was. He got told on training ground, "You're not allowed to play like that." You know what I mean?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, that's it. That's all the positions, guys. That's a full team. So some disagreement around center mid. A little bit around right wing, a little bit around center attacking mid, but that's about it. Relatively straightforward. I feel like we're agreed on a lot of stuff. So I'm trying to decide if that's good. You know what I mean? It doesn't really infer that there's a lot of that's what I mean. There's not a lot of competition for places, evidently, but or it just says we had some really great players at certain positions. So take it however you want. It does hint that good players at Everton in the past kind of hung around for a while till they did a good job. So that's good, I reckon. So yeah, that's it for Everton's team of the decade. Stick around. Next segment's going to be Everton's best signings of the decade. So that's coming. If you're digging what we do, please subscribe to the Toffee Blues YouTube channel. We'd really appreciate it. If you want more Ben, well, keep an eye on his Twitter. He'll tell you when and where he's going to be. He does analysis sometimes for the Liverpool Echo. So you'll see him appear there. Anywhere else, Ben, that we should keep an eye out for? I know you said podcasts for Liverpool Echo as well.
Yeah, the Royal Blue podcast on the Liverpool Echo. I'm a regular guest on them. And you can catch me on them on a sort of every other week kind of basis at the moment. Sweet.
All right. And Terry, also on the Liverpool Echo. He's on the fan jury. He drops his knowledge on there every once in a while. Check his Twitter for all that. And again, just remember, you see him out in the wild, it's okay to approach him. He's huggable. All right, that's it. We're going to move on to the next segment. Much love to everybody. I'll talk to you later. Bye.